Makeup has been around for generations. It has changed drastically over decades. Some people wore it differently, some didn't wear as much. It just depended on who you were and what kind of person you were. There were so many different kinds of makeup that you could choose from. Starting with the 1920s, women did not wear liquid foundation. They used loose powder foundation that just coated their face. They used green, black, and blue eyeshadow for their eyes. They had thin eyebrows with no arch, and they just filled them in as they pleased. So with the 1920s, this is the 1920s. Okay, moving on to the 1930s. They were very similar but had their differences. Ladies' eyebrows changed a lot. They got thinner and definitely didn't have any kind of shape. They were just curved against the eyebrow bone, the eyebrow bone. They didn't do a lot of crazy colors. They did more natural, subtle colors. They wore very thick mascara and red lipstick. Now, here's your 30s. Moving on to the 1940s. The eyebrows came back and they were a lot thicker. They did pastel colors for their eyeshadow, and they introduced liquid foundation. People still used powder foundation, but they introduced liquid and certain people used it of how they wanted. This is the 1940s. Okay. Makeup in the 50s. It was very similar, but had its differences. They had more fuller eyebrows with a prominent arch, so they weren't curvy. They had a up-down motion. They wore more natural colors for their eyes, and they had full lips with reddish orange lipstick. And they got rid of the powder foundation, and everyone used liquid foundation. Now you have your 1950s. Moving on to your 1960s. Makeup changed drastically. It doesn't even compare to the last decades. They introduced eyeliner, and not only did they outline just the bottom of their eyes, they did all of it. They used rosy blush and peachy colors for their lips, and they used little bit weird colors but not too exotic for their eyeshadow. And this is the 60s. Moving to the 1970s. They were more natural eyeshadow. They didn't use exotic colors. They used glitter for their eyelids and black eyelining. They had natural brows and red or peachy lipstick. And this is the 70s. Moving on to the 1980s. This was the turn of the century. It was crazy. Not only did they change everything, but they bombed it. Neon colors on your eyes and on your cheekbones. They introduced wing eyeliner, and it was crazy. They did bright red lipstick, and they had bushy eyebrows. And this is your 1980s. You can see the exotic colors. Moving on to the 1990s. It changed pretty much from the 80s. The eyebrows got thin and barely had an arch. They barely used eyeshadow, and if they did, it was very light natural colors. They didn't really use eyeliner unless some people still used it from the 80s. And they did brown lipstick. Moving on to the 2000s. They This was called the glossy decade. They used purple eyeshadow, lip gloss, colorful eyeliner, and thin arched eyebrows. Moving on to the 2010s, which is basically the decade we were in, but we are now in the first year of the new decade. They had full eyebrows, natural colors for their eye makeup. Closer to the end of the 2000s, they started using reds and browns for their eyeshadow and had full arched eyebrows. And they used brown lipstick. Okay, conclusion. Makeup has changed over the years. It has come a long way. Makeup is a true art and everyone uses it the way they want to. Either it was a good decade or a bad decade, makeup has always been around. Thank you so much. And this is my works cited.